Okay. What we're going to work on today is ironing in our cold Flite powder, our Artic powder. Feedback we've received from many skiers at expos and especially at the Berkey is that they have trouble ironing in the really cold waxes and especially the cold fluoro top coats and getting them in. And so I thought I'd cover a video on that, and there's a few tricks to doing it, and they are more difficult to handle and they are a little bit tricky, but there is ways of doing it. It starts out with, first, if you're going to iron in the cold waxes, you've got to have a good iron. And that is absolutely essential. You've got to have something. This a digital iron. I happen to like this particular iron. It has a microprocessor in it, so it controls the temperature exactly. It's a proportional banding control so that it holds the temperature closer. Most irons are an on-off controller and they have quite a bit of temperature range. Also make sure that you have a heavy iron, that it holds the heat. If you buy one of the smaller, lighter irons, they don't hold the heat and they're going to give you a lot of trouble when you try to iron in cold waxes. The second thing is to have a bench that supports the tip and the tail of the ski so that the thermodynamics of your heat doesn't change as you go through. If you notice, the center of the ski is thick, it gets thin on the tip and tail. If you have just a pin holding this tip and the tail or a very small support for it, it changes the thermodynamics of it and it changes the heat transfer on it. So it makes it more difficult. So having things set up correctly to start with is very key, and having good equipment is very key. Then what I'll do is I use the fluoro block. That's the way we sell it. It's easier to work with. And what I'll do is cork this in and spread it on the ski. And what I'm going to try to do is get a nice thin layer of the Flite Artic onto the ski. And I've previously ironed in our HS0 white wax, or HSLF white on them. So it's our cold wax. And again, we engineer our products to work a little easier and to apply easier, but when it comes to performance, making waxing difficult doesn't necessarily make it faster. As you can see from our results in cold weather waxing, our skiers have won many of the major races around and have done it several times. Many of those races we've gone 1-2 in the race. Now I put a thinner layer on because I find a thin layer is easier to work with. Then I take my special block and I cork it in. And what I do is, it's kind of like a Pac-Man thing here, is I'll pull the wax down and then I'll tip my block up and keep it under, and I lightly cork it in. And I'm just trying to get a nice even coating on that. And I find it's easier to work with a couple layers of a lightweight coating than one thick one, and then it's also key to get enough fluoro compound in there to make it work. Several people try to put it in too light and they really don't get good enough coverage to make it work. So I'm going to go over it a couple times. And cork it in each time so that I get that nice light layer on there. And you can see from the way I'm rubbing it in, this is a cold block, it's a hard wax. And as the temperature gets colder, and it seems we've been racing a lot in nothing but cold weather here lately, then it gets a little more difficult to cork it in. So I'll cork this in just lightly here. Again, same way, Pac-Man type thing. Again, I'm just corking it in to get a nice light bonding of that wax in there, so if you sneeze you don't lose it all. And I'll do this one more time so I'll get a real good coating on it. work it in same way. A little Pac-Man action here. And you can see I'm getting a nice light coating of that floral compound over the top of the ski. It's got that nice light gray color to it. Now I'll take my base saver. I'll take my iron. I have my iron set at about 140. I'll put the base saver on it. And the key here is to understand what you're trying to accomplish. The pure florals do not blend into anything. They're an inert compound. So what you're trying to do is press this into the wax that's in the ski. So running down pressure is absolutely key for it. And you can see I'm just warming that wax that's up in the ski and pushing it in there. And I've got a nice even coating going of the iron down the ski, and I control that temperature of the ski by controlling the speed of the iron. So I just watch that base as I go down. And you may see when you're doing the real cold ones where you get little bits of the pure floral that doesn't blend completely in. Just keep on going, don't worry about it, because we'll come back with the speed block and cork those in while the ski is still warm. So you can see here a little down pressure with the base saver works very efficiently. As I see now, they're coming up with irons that are go up higher in temperature and burn the surface faster, and to me that's just like getting a bigger hammer and hitting something harder with it. It's not thinking things through and designing and engineering an application. Now what I'll do is cork this in while the ski is still warm. What I do is I pick up all the wax that's in the stability groove and I cork that in also, so I don't waste any of the wax. And again, the harder and faster you cork, the better bonding you get. Now when you do this application, we had a skier a couple of years ago use the base saver for the first time, and he skied the Susu Ski Fest 42K race. He went down and skied the Badger State Games 42K race, and he went up and skied a 30K race in Calumet, Michigan on one waxing on the same set of skis over a 4-week period. And he said he felt the skis start to slow down a little bit in the Calumet race towards the end. So he skied over 100K of racing using the base saver and using this system to iron it in. So what I'm going to do now is let the ski cool down to room temperature. So I'm going to let it sit here for 15-20 minutes and cool down. Then I'll brush it out. But you can see when you look at the ski right now that when you iron it in and you just burn the surface on with what I call the burn-on method, the top of the ski is really ugly. And you can see here where that wax is pushed down into the ski and you've pressed it into the existing wax. So it's a very different process than the burn-on method. So at this point we'll just take a little bit of a break here and let that ski cool down. So we've waited here about 15 minutes. I can feel the ski that it's cooled down to room temperature, so I can go ahead and brush it off. And here, when you use the base saver and you press it in, when you go to brush it out, there's hardly anything that comes out of the ski. So this is my designated floral brush, and you can see as I'm brushing the ski out that there's hardly anything that comes out of that. I'm getting just very little bit of wax out of the ski. So what I've ironed in, I've kept. So it's a very efficient process. Otherwise, you're taking your valuable floral top coat and you're brushing it into the garbage can, which is not very efficient. Then I'll take my nylon brush and I'll polish it in. And this just goes over to put a little shine on that ski and take any of the nubs off the top of it As you can see, I have a nice shine to the base, and I don't burn my ski bases up. So it's just a very efficient, engineered way of doing it, and you can see that making waxing difficult does not make it any faster necessarily, but you can make it so that you can iron in cold weather waxes in a fairly easy way. And again, the things that are very important are the bench that's got to support that ski correctly, and having that digital iron and having a good iron that's heavy that holds the heat. And again, you can see from our results when we're racing in cold weather, these are major citizen racers. Our skiers have won several of these racers. They're all people with families. They've got kids at home. They're limited in the amount of training, and they can win races because they have fast skis. So thanks for watching the video. Again, here, if you have any questions, attend a waxing clinic, give us a call, send us an email on it, and we're glad to help you out. So